The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Hello and welcome to another Soccer to the Max here. I am not feeling great today, and I'm trying really hard not to have some nasty cough, so that's all y'all hear for a minute. So I'm going to just let Erik and Rachael host this one by themselves. There's a lot that happened. You had the U.S. Women's National Team game today, NWSL draft, some trades. We'll talk about the MLS draft on another show, maybe in the midweek or something. But since there's so much to talk, especially with what Rachael focuses on, probably better for to have one less person to go through for her to talk. So, and this way it sounds a lot better than me hacking away. So, Erik, take it away, sir.
Yes, good evening. First and foremost, you feel better. I have preached the benefits of Delsum on many occasions. Go and get yourself some. It works wonders. That said, welcome everybody to a rather quirky, interesting episode of Soccer to the Max. We've got quite a bit to cover from the women's game today. So, thankfully, sitting beside me, the lovely, the talented, Miss Rachael McKriger. How are you?
Well, I'm blushing now after that. Thank you, sir. I am doing much better now that we got a nice, comfortable win over Denmark. I was a little nervous.
Well, it happened in really kind of two different games the same way. While we have one Ertz on the football field, going down early and then turning that to a blowout to get to a Super Bowl. Congratulations, Eagles. We'll definitely be covering that on Football to the Max. At the same time, Denmark, thanks to Nadia Nadim, flying start, 1-0. Then the U.S. goes on to score the next 5, including Julie Ertz. So it was a very winning day in that particular household.
And the video after the match of her finding out that Zach made the Super Bowl and just crying tears of joy, that's a really cool thing to see.
Yes, and I will say for tonight, I will spare everybody, including Minnesotans, the accent. But you've been warned. It will come. Now, for the first topic at hand, 2018 got off to just about the polar opposite start as compared to 2017 for the U.S. Women's National Team. Little bit of last-ditch tinkering, but overall a very strong 11 and coming back to put up an insane result against the Danish.
Yeah, and it's funny because Julie Foudy even said it before the broadcast started. The whole talk in 2017 was to look at the team, try new things, experiment. And you would have thought with the upcoming World Cup qualifying coming up, with the She Believes Cup coming up, you wouldn't really want to tinker too much. You want to kind of get your starting 11. Well, what does Jill Ellis do? She starts 19-year-old Tierna Davidson out of Stanford University. But she had a nice night tonight. She, I couldn't quite see where she was on Nadia Nadim's goal, but hey, that's a corner kick goal, so you can't just really blame it on one person. She had a really nice showing. And then also making her debut was Savannah McCaskill. She came in for Andy Sullivan in the 70th minute. So a couple new faces joining the mix with some of the veterans. And a new face that was at that spot in 2016 was Mallory Pugh. And she loves San Diego because she scored her first international goal against the Republic of Ireland. And then today she scored 2 goals against Denmark, both in the 47th and the 65th minute. So she was the spark of the second half until she came out in the 70th minute for Lynn Williams.
And with one of those goals, we're talking a good 25, 30 yards out. She barely even takes a touch and just fires a rocket. Boom. Done. I mean, that was just incredible. And on her second goal, she was just like, okay, yeah, this is what I do. Move along. Nothing to see here.
Yeah, pretty much. That one shot, just an absolute rocket shot.
Yeah, and I will say credit to Denmark, because even though they weren't able to generate really any chances, they still made what they could out of their possession of the football, because it was a pretty even match in those terms, but just U.S. very clinical as far as moving forward, especially attacking on the wing in the final third, in a very clinical finishing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Denmark is a team that, and again, Julie Foudy said this in the broadcast, they're ranked number 12 in the FIFA World Rankings, but I think they are a little undermined in those rankings. Granted, I mean, these are rankings that also, and I've mentioned this before, has the United States at number 1, which I personally don't think you should put them against the Netherlands, Canada, Germany, and even Brazil. But they're number 12 ranking just because they're not in the top 10, and just because it was a 5-1 match. They have a lot of talent on their team, and Nadia Nadim is that spark.
Absolutely, and I think especially for friendlies coming up towards a very important, I would say even more important than last year's She Believes Cup coming up with quite the murderer's row of a lineup. This was a very big test tonight, and glad to see the U.S. come through the way they did.
Yeah, it's nice to get that first match of 2018 under your belt, because if they wouldn't have, their first matches would have been all the way in March for the She Believes Cup. So it's nice to get that little warm-up. But then I think March is where you really need to pay attention, because that's where they're playing France and England and Germany. Or no. They have no, that's the Tournament of Nations. Never mind, that has Australia. Yeah, they have France, they have England, and they have Germany. And those are all, especially that England and those Germany games, those are going to be really tough matches for the United States.
Right, and in mentioning the rankings, all three of those teams currently sit top 6. So the fact that now, even though we have a little bit of a younger lineup, as you mentioned, with the making their debuts tonight, but everything seemed much more cohesive, and I think that was really lacking last year.
Yeah, exactly. And you also have to remember in this one that the United States is also without Becky Sauerbrunn, too, which is their main anchor on defense. I would say that the United States, yeah, they're also without Tobin Heath, but they were also without Tobin Heath for a majority of the time since the Olympics. So and you have somebody like Andy Sullivan, Julie Ertz, Lindsey Horan. Also, they were without, I believe, Sam Mewis tonight. She is recovering from an injury as well, Morgan Bryan as well. So there is a lot of players who have played together in this pool together. They also didn't bring in Allie Long. The chemistry's there. It's just you have to find the right starting 11. And honestly, I think Christen Press should be in that starting 11.
I completely agree, because even with tonight, there's always room for improvement. Yes, the defense held well, and yes, there were a lot of counterattacking, but there were a couple of scary moments to where Denmark, where they were able to chain passes together, really hold things down in the midfield. So you don't want to say tweaking, because this isn't about tweaking, but you have those teeny little holes that you definitely want to fill.
And that's where these young players like Savannah McCaskill, Mallory Pugh, Andy Sullivan, and Tierna Davidson. Now, granted, do I think Tierna Davidson is going to be on the World Cup roster? I don't think so. Maybe not. Honestly, I think, and this isn't even a, I'm trying to think of the word. This isn't even a risky move, so to say. It's not really an experiment. I think Jill Ellis needs to bring in Ashley Hatch. I think she had an incredible rookie season. I think she is incredibly overlooked by Rose Lavelle, who hasn't been able to keep healthy, and Mallory Pugh, and we all know what Mallory Pugh can do. She's great. But Ashley Hatch, I mean, where's the credit that she gets?
Exactly. And that's one of the things that's really plagued the women's national team over the past couple of years, is the fact that you have such young talent and such underrated talent, which are now flourishing in the NWSL, but it's kind of hard to break the old guard of that team, if you will, and that could lead to potentially, if this isn't fixed coming up over the next few months, a detrimental situation down the road.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's what happened in the 2016 Rio Olympics. There were too many veterans, too many older players. And granted, these players are all great, but Carli Lloyd slowing down, Kelly O'Hara slowing down. I don't think Alex Morgan is quite slowing down yet, but she's not as crisp as she used to be. There were a couple times tonight where I thought, oh, these are easy goals for Alex Morgan. She didn't get them in. So it's a very fine line that Jill Ellis is trying to balance on.
Right, and you can only balance that line but for so long, because another disappointing performance in the She Believes Cup, and there's going to be a lot of questions asked.
And the Tournament of Nations, for how close that is to World Cup qualifying.
Absolutely. So, Jill Ellis, you mentioned you wanted as far as your schedule, you wanted it hard and harder. Well, you wanted it, you got it. Now the question is, can you really live up to it?
Next couple months is going to be very interesting for this team.
Indeed, we shall see, because there could be, by this time in, say, June, July, some very nervous times in World Cup qualifying. And, well, let's just say we remember the last time there were any nervous times in World Cup qualifying.
Ugh.
Yeah, going to leave it at that. However, in a little bit more encouraging news, the NWSL really getting everything together. There's been blockbuster trades. You've had the draft. That's very moving and shaking. I'm very intrigued by all of this news.
And the trade just completely overtook the draft. It was a three-way trade between the Chicago Red Stars, the Houston Dash, and the Sky Blue FC. See, there's so many teams that it's hard to figure it out. Essentially, Christen Press is no longer calling Chicago home. She's going down to the Houston Dash. From Houston going to Sky Blue is Carli Lloyd and forward Janine Becky. Carli Lloyd, it just came out the other day on ESPNW that she actually requested a trade. Carli Lloyd's getting older. New Jersey's her home. She even said in a quote, like, this is where I'm probably going to end my career, at home. And I mean, looking at the big picture personally, too, down in Houston, she didn't have her husband, Brian, living with her. Now that she is going back to New Jersey, she can finally live with her husband, Brian. But they had to give up a lot to get Carli Lloyd. So Chicago gets Sam Kerr and Nikki Stanton. And getting Sam Kerr for this Chicago team is just... Who cares about Morgan Bryan going to Lyon at this point? You just got Sam Kerr.
And we were saying this offline, and I was mentioning just with this trade, look at where the balance of power now shifts in the NWSL. Yes, Chicago, they've always had that little bit of a potential, but you always felt that they were just missing 1, 2, at most like 3 pieces before they could compete with the likes of a Portland or North Carolina and their hot start for winning the title. Now, lo and behold, they've just been given a huge gift.
Well, and North Carolina got a huge gift too. They got Crystal Dunn after her season with Chelsea Ladies is up in the summer. North Carolina gets Crystal Dunn, and Ashley Hatch that I just mentioned. She was North Carolina's star player this year. She's going up to the Washington Spirit. Having her and Mallory Pugh together on the same pitch at forward, that's going to be a tough team to face. And the Spirit, we're going to get into this soon, had a heck of a draft. I mean, they got Andy Sullivan with the number 1 overall pick. They had a great draft. They have a great goalkeeper in Stephanie LeBay, even their backup, Kelsey Weiss. Really good goalkeepers. Their defense is young, but they're getting better. They even drafted a couple. This Washington's team, this is the draft that Jim Gabarra wanted. This is the draft that finally brought his team together and is making it what he intended it to be. This Washington Spirit team is going to be one to look out for this year.
Now, with everything that you've mentioned, and I'm kind of curious about this because I've seen this all the time in other sports, but with soccer, it's kind of tougher to do. Could Washington look at this draft and these trades and say, okay, can we really pull kind of a worst to first?
Yeah, I think so. I think they can do it. I think it's going to be tough. I don't think it's going to be as tough as many people think it is because Portland lost some really good players. They lost Nadia Nadim. Dagny Brun's daughter is not going to be playing because she's expecting her first child. They lost Allie Long. They just lost. She is with the Seattle Reign now. I know they lost somebody. Oh, Amanda Dine Henri. She is also with Lyon. So, and Tobin Heath is still injured. So Portland lost a lot of good players. Mark Parsons only drafted, I believe, 2, maybe 3. I think it was 2. But Portland, they definitely have their weak spots now. They still have a great goalkeeper. North Carolina, I think they're a team that's still going to stay on top because, I mean, they still have Lynn Williams, Jess McDonald, and now you throw Crystal Dunn into that mix of forwards, and they just re-signed Denise O'Sullivan and McCall Zerboni, who McCall Zerboni I think was one of the better players, of the 2017 season, who might not have gotten the recognition she deserved. They're still going to be a top team, but I can see the Spirit making the playoffs. They're going to have a tough contest. I think they're going to have a tough time getting in front of North Carolina and the Orlando Pride. I say Orlando Pride because there's a rumor mill. It's getting stronger and stronger that Sydney LaRue is heading to the Pride, so you add her into the mix. Depends on, they're probably going to lose somebody big, but, they're not going to lose Marta. They're not going to lose Alex Morgan, I don't think. It's going to be a tough NWSL season. I think Washington, if they don't make the playoffs, they're going to be right outside the cusp, but I can see them making it in that 3rd or 4th spot.
Yeah, and just like with a team like Orlando and how everything shook out with the playoffs this year, if you can just get in, even as that 3rd or 4th seed, anything can happen. Now, I'm hoping Orlando plays this situation with Sydney LaRue smart, because if you think about it, and with LaRue's desires, with her husband Dom Dwyer now with Orlando City, building a stable situation down there, the Pride have the leverage. They just got to be careful with it.
And I kind of want to amend my statement on Alex Morgan. Alex Morgan could go to Utah. Her husband, Servando, is now with the Galaxy. So if you put her in Utah, she's not that far away from her husband. Because, as we all know, LA doesn't have a women's soccer team yet. I can't wait to see what happens. Because it's going to be Sydney Leroux. I cannot see her staying with the Utah Royals. So it'll be exciting to see who they get.
It very well will be. And it's also one of those little bits of enigmas with the Utah Royals. Who are they going to keep from Kansas City? How are they going to build their identity in Salt Lake City as compared to what they had at the Sporting or Children's Mercy Park? What's going to be the changes and say, okay, we're here, now we've moved, we can compete right away. Let's wait a little bit, build something up, get the fan base together. So there's a lot of key things to really pay attention to as we're winding down towards the end of the NWSL offseason.
And I know when you talk about the fan base, I know that their ticket sales, I think I just saw the other day, it's reached over 3,000 season ticket holders. I think that's more than Sky Blue, FC Kansas City, and a third team. I can't think of who, but it's more than they had.
That is impressive because, well, let's face it, Salt Lake City isn't one of the biggest markets. It's not historically one of the biggest sports towns, but they're really making a push, and it's very refreshing to see, especially for a league like the NWSL, where they could use really a couple of anchor teams that they can continue to build around, especially if they want to expand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and for the main bits and bobs about the women's game, too, well, MLS, they decided not to be left out, and there's been what some would say a bit of a blockbuster move. Oh, the LA Galaxy. If you're a fan, I'm sorry, kind of be prepared for this, but Jazzy Zardes, he's going bye-bye, and it's one of those things to where I get, but at the same time, with the drama and the saga that is Columbus, Don, you've got head of the league saying, oh, this is what's going to happen, but the top brass of the team is saying, no, while we're here, we're making the best of this. Let's go.
Yeah, and you know what? I think you said it in our group chat. Columbus isn't making moves like they're a team that wants to move to Austin. Bringing Jossie Zardes in is a huge, huge boost for your team. Yeah, you lose Ola Kamara, but, I mean, yeah, Jossie Zardes didn't have the best 2017 season. We know that. But he was also playing in a different position. He was playing in a midfield position when he's used to playing in a forward position. Maybe that'll change with Columbus. I don't know. But gosh, I love this trade. I think it's a good fit.
I really hope so, because Columbus and Rachael, you mentioned this, Zardes and his wife are expecting their third child. So you've got Columbus is more of a family-friendly environment when it comes to raising kids. You got the tax situation a little bit different, a little bit friendlier on the wallet, so that's a big plus. And he gets to feed off of the energy of a very raucous crowd. And as you mentioned, really filling in Kamara's spot as a forward, knowing that Columbus is bringing him, saying, okay, we know that you are a capable goal-scoring threat. We want you to be that for us. You've seen what we've done. You could go from bottom feeder to potentially competing and being in the mix for MLS Cup. I think psychologically alone, that's a tremendous boost. And I think that means we're going to see potentially a lot out of Zardes from 2018.
And even though Zardes is new, I'm sure he knows about the Save the Crew. He understands that this is a whole movement going on. And now that you're playing for the Crew, you are going to give everything you've got, just like everybody else on that roster, to keep the Crew in Columbus. I think he's going to have his best season because of that.
Absolutely. And who knows if this truly is the one thing that helps Columbus get over the top in what should still be a somewhat weak yet very competitive Eastern Conference. Look what this would do for Columbus. And who knows, this might change a couple of key minds as far as stadium situation and moving the team.
Save the Crew.
Yeah, I've been on board. I like it, and especially with Don. Seriously, Don. I'm on the email list, so I know the questions that you ask. I find it convenient that you cover just about every metropolitan area for almost every club, including the expansion ones, except Columbus. Don, do you really think people like me and my fellow co-host here would be too stupid to notice? Damn it, Don, what are you doing? What are you doing? I don't get it. Again, I try to be in a good mood, yet I see things like that. Rachel, can you help me understand? Can you help talk me off the cliff?
Here's something that might get you back on the cliff. I just sent this in our group chat, and this is going back to the NWSL. NWSL transfers just tweeted to be confirmed. Another NWSL big multi-cross trade between 3 teams is expected for next week. Washington, Orlando, and another unknown team is involved. Utah, Ashley Hatch again, and Sydney Leroux are reoccurring names. It's happening.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, poor Ashley Hatch. She's just in Australia, killing it with the W League out there, and she's just getting traded from one team to another. She's not going to know where she's going when she comes back.
I mean, for those of you, and especially longtime baseball fans, who remember Kenny Lofton, Ashley Hatch looks like she's going to be the Kenny Lofton of the NWSL. Team to team to team. Fantastic player, but just perennial trade bait. I don't get it. Sydney Leroux, that's an obvious move. This, I don't know.
But in a way, it's kind of flattering because she's desirable then.
Well, true.
Teams are looking at her and seeing the rookie season she had and saying, that's who we want on our team.
And this is true, and I get that, but it's like at the same time, she's desirable enough to acquire, but is she not good enough to keep?
Yeah, that's true too.
There's just some things that I don't know if I'll ever fully understand. I just hope she at least has a nice jersey collection out of this. Just hang up all of the different kits that she wears throughout her career. That's what I would do, at least. But alas, I believe that that concludes this brief adventure. Rachel, not sure if you had anything to add?
I just wanted to mention a tiny fact. I'm going to play a game with you, Erik. How many players do you think got drafted from Duke University during the NWSL draft.
Okay. How many overall picks were there?
40.
Oh, Duke. They're not quite North Carolina. I know they're not the perennial powerhouse at Stanford. Well, considering there's not a whole bunch of other, like, elite D1 schools, I'm gonna say 6.
Impressive.
I was spot on, wasn't I?
Impressive. And two of them are going to the Washington Spirit, too.
Really?
Yep.
Huh?
Rebecca Quinn and Skylar Dubry.
Well, okay. I'm not going to flat out and say I'm proud for Duke. As a Miami fan who our women's team, we've had our struggles, but overall we're pretty good. We're getting there. We're building. So I can't outright cheer for an ACC rival, but this is giving more respect to the conference and more respect to the triangle itself, because as I kind of mentioned in my guess, it used to be all Tar Heels, Tar Heels, Tar Heels, Tar Heels. Now the Blue Devils are catching up quite a bit, which is a good sign and will hopefully evolve into another good chapter of the rivalry between those two schools.
Yeah, North Carolina only had 3.
Oh boy,
North Carolina had 3, Brigham Young had 2, and WVU had 2.
Yeah, okay. There's going to be some bragging rights there. Not going to lie. I'm probably going to have to check Twitter to see who said what and the little smack talk that's going about.
That's fair.
But alas, I believe with that note and my random skills, thank you very much. That will come to the end of our show. And before we go, let's shamelessly self-promote. Rachel, where can they find you all throughout the vast space of the interwebs?
You can find me on Twitter for all of your soccer coverage at Rachael McKriger. You can find more soccer, photography, everything, same username on Instagram. But soccer, you want soccer, you go to the Twitter page.
And then as for myself, you can find me, congratulate me, ask all kinds of weird questions within reason at Squid Sportshead. As far as for my dulcet tones, you can find me right here on the W2M network for not just soccer to the max, football to the max with awesome producer Sean Garmer here. I've got the kickoff. That's going to be a very sad yet still humble brag interesting episode coming up this week. So between more musings coming up as the off season arrives for RaiderRamble.com, I'm going to be around. You're still going to have to put up with me quite a bit. So just be prepared, everyone. But for myself, for Sean Garmer, at W2M Sean, the head man of the W2M network, without him, we would not be here. We hope you get well soon. And for myself, Erik Watkins, for Miss Rachel McKriger, we shall see you next time.
See ya.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.